All right, welcome back to Fight Talk, where we talk combat sports. My name is Austin Ullman, and we're going to go over the Bivol Beterbiev fight that just took place. It is 6:12 right now, and these guys have just walked out of the ring. We're doing an immediate reaction post-show, and what a fight that was. There's going to be some controversy. I haven't even checked Twitter yet, but I can only imagine what it's going to look like in a matter of time. And that was an all-time battle right there. So before getting into any opinions about the event or any opinions about who won the fight, we can sit back and say, well, we're going to get a rematch, which is a bonus. We were not guaranteed that coming into this fight, even though everybody knew that was probably the best next step for boxing, was to have these guys fight not only once, but probably twice. And if we're lucky, 3 times. And the fact of the matter is, no matter who won, Artur Beterbiev is getting older. He's 39. But obviously he comes out victorious. So Artur Beterbiev, congratulations to him. He's the winner. I'm going to go over my scorecard, what I thought, what other people were seeing. But right off the bat, I'll just say I think this is just generally, based on what I've seen, most scorecards I've seen were either a draw or a Bivol decision win. And so we're going to go over all that. But that's what I've seen. I've seen that on Twitter. I looked at my own and I looked it over and I tried to see how Beterbiev could have won some of these rounds that they would have had to given to him to get him a 115 or a 116. And it's hard to. So we're going to go over all that. But Artur Beterbiev is your undisputed light heavyweight champion in boxing. He has all 4 belts now. He has defeated Dmitry Bivol. And that was a really good event and a really good fight. It was a fight that stylistically it seemed like was going in his decision after the 3rd round. I mean, you've got Bivol, who won the first 3 rounds, and then Beterbiev wins 4, 5, and 6 on my scorecard, and I think most people's. And at that point, it felt like, without a doubt, Beterbiev was going to win this fight, because that was, coming into this event, it was the general consensus that Bivol's going to win the first 3 rounds. This is how Beterbiev fights. And if he can turn it around in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round, the guy's going to win the fight. He probably won't give up another round. It reminded me not as chaotic as that fight was, but it was a lot like the Fury Usyk fight that took place in that very same ring earlier this year in May. That was a fight where it felt like we knew where it was going, and then it completely turned, and then it turned again, and that's where this fight was. Early, I was like, okay, can Bivol just control this and win this thing? He was showing a lot of things that I wasn't sure that he was going to be able to show. And then Beterbiev turns around and is just like, oh, I know exactly where this is going. And it turns out that I didn't know where that was going, because I have Bivol ending up winning 8, 9, 10, and then 12. So we'll go over the scorecard. Let's start here. I didn't watch most of the undercard. I was watching a lot of college football this afternoon. There were some good games. And I saw that it was moved up to 4:30, and I was planning on turning it on right at 5, expecting that the fights wouldn't get underway till 5:15, 5:30. And I could have well just kept it off until 5. There was a half-hour dance and music show that took place. I don't know who this is targeted to. My only thought is, if this is supposed to help it feel big, like the Super Bowl or something. But I genuinely don't understand what audience this is targeting, because you've got, obviously it's something deeper within Saudi. It can be us as American fans, or even fans in the UK. We're boxing fans. We're turning on boxing. And if we were music and dance fans, we would turn on something else on a Saturday afternoon, and certainly not be watching Bivol and Beterbiev. That went on for 30 minutes, which was kind of a punch in the face, I felt as a fan. But the big question is, like, who is this for? And I don't know if they feel that it makes it feel bigger, but that would be my number one question to ask is, like, who is this? I mean, what fan base are we reaching with this? Because they've done a lot of really good things. And I actually want to compliment them on one of those things, which was the introduction. The little video that they played before the event, that was amazing. That was, if you missed it, try to find a way to go back and watch it. In fact, I'll try to put it up on our Twitter because it was so good and I want everyone to see it. It was, and Saudi's done a lot of these videos to promote these fights, but they showed it right before the fight, and I really enjoyed that. And it was basically talking about a crown that happened that no one could get to. A lot of people have tried to get it, no one could get it, and it was the undisputed light heavyweight crown. And then Bivol and Beterbiev are going through the dark forests and mountains and everything, and basically killing all these people and trying to get to this crown, and then they meet each other at the end of the video, and that's how they introduced the fight. I thought that was fantastic. That really got me into it. But then the fight itself. So we'll get into, I've got the CompuBox stuff pulled up here, and then I've got my personal scorecard pulled up right here. So we'll get into that and exactly who I thought, and we'll go round by round of how this fight went. So the first 3 rounds I gave to Bivol. That was pretty obvious. I don't see any way you could have given any of those rounds to Beterbiev. Someone gave the second to Beterbiev, which I did not see. But I think the first 3 went to Bivol. The jab was money early. It was obvious, especially by like that 3rd, 4th round, that Beterbiev was going to do everything he could to walk him down, and did so somewhat successfully. And that was where certainly if you were a Bivol fan, it was probably frustrating, especially in like the 12th round or the 11th even, that Beterbiev won. But Beterbiev, I think, could have won the 12th round because of that moment he had in the 12th, and he was just walking Bivol down and landing punch after punch. And all Bivol needed to do, this is easy for me to say, but all Bivol needed to do was to land one big punch to just stop this, rampage of punches that Beterbiev was putting on him. And he was unable to do that at points. When he was able to do that, he was extremely successful. Beterbiev would not put punches together. And really vice versa. We saw a couple moments in this fight where Bivol was putting it on with some huge combinations. Bivol throws such impressive combinations. But there was a couple times, especially in the 7th round, that he really woke up the beast in Beterbiev, and Beterbiev ended up winning those rounds because of that. So, first 3 rounds to Bivol. The jab was what got it done for Bivol there. Beterbiev did not sit behind his jab as much as I would have thought he was going to, or as much as I would have liked him to. But frankly, that's just something they probably weren't thinking about much because of how good Bivol's jab is. Bivol looked more comfortable early. You could certainly tell, that he understood the importance of winning these rounds. He understood that it could very likely come down to the scorecards like this. And if there's any rounds that you can beat Beterbiev it's the first 2 or 3 rounds. And so he knew he needed to win them. And he came out with high volume stuff, which was a really good move for him. Beterbiev began to control the ring, but Bivol, like in the second, was landing big shots. Both guys slowed down a bit there in the second. Both of them were throwing a lot in the first. And I started to ask myself, is this the direction we're going in? Is this going to be a slower fight? And that did not turn out to be the case. I mean, the stamina these guys had in the 12th round there was really impressive. So really no issue for either guy there. Certainly for Bivol, throughout I had questions. He was moving side to side a lot, and it didn't play a factor in this fight whatsoever. 3rd round was a slugfest late. There was some big shots, but Bivol won. You could tell Beterbiev was starting to warm up at this point. Bivol was not showing a lot of respect for the power at this point, and that was that was the big worry. You could hear it. I mean, the announcers would not stop talking about it, that they couldn't believe the lack of respect. And it's not that he doesn't respect. He knows Beterbiev's a big puncher, but he knew he could. He just knew that he could find a way around that. And his head movement was really good, and he just had a way to avoid that big right hand that Beterbiev stumbles so many opponents with. So Beterbiev, I had him winning then the 4th, 5th, and 6th. So I had Bivol first 3, then Beterbiev 4, 5, and 6. The tide certainly turned, and this is when it felt like this is going to go Beterbiev's way. I'm not even sure Bivol, at that point, I wasn't sure he could win another round. Obviously, we know now that he did. Beterbiev started walking him down big time, easily won the 4th, easily won the 5th. And Bivol started to look a bit tired at this point. 6th round was a lot of the same. And so it's 3-3 now, halfway through the fight. And it feels like we know exactly where this is going. And then the 7th round was certainly the craziest round of the fight. And that was, at this point, I'll just say, through 6 at this point, I saw 4-2 Bivol, 4-2 Beterbiev, a little bit, but mostly 3-3 at this point. My scorecards followed really everyone else's the whole night. And then in the 7th, Bivol, I gave the 7th to Beterbiev. Bivol woke up the beast this round. It was really incredible to watch, actually, and you felt bad for Bivol. He put together probably his longest combination of the night, and it did some serious damage, and it did knock back Beterbiev a bit, and Beterbiev took a second to recover and then just absolutely went after Bivol and hurt Bivol. He hurt Bivol at that point, and I believe that's when Bivol, that was the shot where Bivol started swelling up and had a big cut on his face there. So that was a massive point in the fight because Bivol was starting to take control again, and then Beterbiev wakes him up with a massive shot, and Beterbiev ends up winning that round. So I had him up 4-3 through 7. And then in the 8th, it was close. I had the closest rounds for me personally as 8 and 12, but I had it close. I had Bivol winning the round. There was a big-time exchange late in the 8th round, and I gave basically the better side of that exchange to Bivol and gave him that round. The 9th, I gave to Bivol as well. He had a big combo late to win the round. That was a round 2 that came down to the last 20 seconds. There was a few rounds like that. Came down to the last 20 seconds, and Bivol ended up taking it. And at this point, you could tell there was a lot of stamina left for both guys, and we were in for a fantastic fight. Bivol wins the 10th, 10-9. Big combos in the middle of the round. That was an obvious round. 11th was obvious. So this was the point where they said in the broadcast, they caught this up with it. They picked it up with the translators that they told Beterbiev in his corner that he needed a knockout. They asked him about this after the fight, and he made a comment about they always tell him that. But that was a worrisome comment for me because I had him down 2 rounds. And so I thought 2 rounds he could easily, but you can see it on the scorecards at this point. One judge would have had him up at this point. And I guess both judges you would have had 2 judges that would have had him up. One by 2 points and one by 4 points. And then one judge would have had as a tie. So that was where they were, and Beterbiev's corner told him he needed a knockout. You could see it in the 11th. Bivol had no answer. He had a huge round. He sold out. Probably the most obvious round to score in this entire fight. And then in the 12th, so at this point I had Bivol up 6 rounds to 5. And then the 12th comes, and I gave it to Bivol. 10-9, I gave him that round. And I said that, so Beterbiev won the last 2 minutes of the round, but Bivol did enough damage in that first, and there was a point in that round where it seemed like it would go Beterbiev's way, but Bivol slowed him down enough at about the minute mark and then exchanged well with him. And so I had it 7 rounds to 5 for Bivol. And I could have easily seen where you could have a 114 draw. I struggle to see 116, 112 for sure, and I really do struggle to see 115, 113 as well. I don't quite understand that, and I would love to know, and we'll see it soon. In fact, I'll be checking Twitter to see when it comes up, because I'd love to talk about it, but I look down here, and I don't know. I would love to see what rounds and watch them back they gave to Beterbiev, because, listen, that was... We're not going to sit here and call this a robbery and start throwing things and getting mad about it, because we see that all too much in boxing in really close fights. And this was a really close fight and a well-fought fight by both guys. But I thought Beterbiev was the better fighter. I thought he won more rounds. Bivol, sorry. I thought was the better fighter. I thought he won more rounds. And I was just really impressed. By the time this fight started, I thought Beterbiev was going to win. I kind of switched my prediction in my head. I had picked Bivol. And man, Bivol showed a lot that we had previously not seen from him. And the stamina felt like at a point it might be an issue, and it wasn't. And all these things that I felt like might be an issue, they just weren't. And he responded time and time again. But congrats to both guys. Heck of a fight. I don't want to dog on Beterbiev the whole time just because I disagree with the judges here. He fought a heck of a fight. He did really well. He said it after. It wasn't his best stuff. And you hope that's not because he's 39, because we want to see more of that sharp Beterbiev. But you can certainly agree. But I wouldn't say he didn't have his best stuff because something went wrong. I think he didn't have his best stuff because he was standing against a world-class fighter, Dimitri Bivol. And same with Bivol, honestly. This was... I said it coming in. I said it was 50-50. I picked Bivol, but I said it was a 50-50 fight. And honestly, I don't remember the last time in boxing that I've felt so 50-50 about a fight. I mean, one was a power guy and one was a decision guy. And so usually you feel a strong conviction towards one guy. Not in this case. It was just not the case in this fight. And we saw that. I mean, they just canceled each other out in so many different ways, and they both just responded to adversity so well in the fight. This was a fantastic fight. This is easily my second favorite boxing fight of the year right now, behind Fury Usyk. And by the time the year's over, Fury and Usyk will have fought again. And it's obviously some other ones. But this lived up to the hype. This was as good as it possibly could have been. There's no scenario where this could have been more exciting or better. This was like they both gave us what we knew they had. And it ended as a really, really close fight, in a fight where, listen, I was expecting to come on here and talk about maybe David Benavidez and what's next for each guy. It's a rematch, guys. I mean, it is an automatic, immediate rematch. Luckily, the Saudis can put that on without a doubt, because we deserve it as fans. These fighters deserve it. And you have to respect their personalities in a sport in boxing where so often different personalities and the ways just these guys can be in the ring after fights and things like that can mess up fights. These guys are just really perfect for what you want in a boxer. If you're a promoter and you're looking for a guy, it's these guys. Extremely hardworking, not going to whine about a decision. Just absolute classy guys in the ring before and after. Not much trash talking. Like, let's just get after it and find out who's the undisputed champ of the world. So that was refreshing to see in a world where we see a lot of just random chaos going on in combat sports. And we knew, and that's why so many people were excited about this fight, because it was just everything you want in boxing. It was just two guys who are just so incredibly disciplined and just do not spend time on social media. I mean, they just don't talk. They just get down to business. And listen, we're going to talk pound for pound later. It is hard because these guys are both generational stars, and instead of one guy shining above the other, that's not the case. It's not the Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence situation where it's like these guys are both generational, and then you're like, oh, but Terrence Crawford's like levels above this guy. That's just not the case here. And so we're left with a situation where I think either of these guys are just as good as Inoue, Crawford, and Usyk. But Inoue, Crawford, and Usyk, they just don't have that Beterbiev in their division like Bivol, and vice versa. They just don't have those guys that push them like that. I want to get into the CompuBox box just a little bit here to check out the stats. They just posted that on Twitter, so I want to get to that. And so at the end of the fight, you've got the final punchlines right here. 137 total punches landed to the body by Beterbiev, 20% rate, and 142 landed to the body, 33% rate for Bivol. Total jabs, 47 for Beterbiev and 58 for Bivol. And Beterbiev was 12% on that, where Bivol was 22%. And then power punches, Beterbiev was 29% and Bivol was 50%. So Beterbiev, like in that one, I'll give you the number. The power punches, Beterbiev was 90 for 306. And Bivol was 84 for 168. So they were fairly close in each category, but Bivol threw significantly less punches than Beterbiev did. But Beterbiev kind of has that Nate Diaz style, like in boxing, where it's not a bunch of like huge power punches, but it is a lot of volume that you don't even notice when you're watching the fight, but is taking place. We'll read the inside the numbers. It says Bivol connected on 50% of his power punches, while Beterbiev only landed 29% of his. Bivol landed 33 power punches in the first 6 rounds, while Beterbiev landed 23. Beterbiev turned the tide over the last 6 rounds by landing 67 power punches to Bivol's 51. In rounds 11 and 12, Beterbiev landed 29 power punches, while Bivol only landed 19. I have to watch that 12th round back to see who I would give it to, because I think that was close. I'm excited to see what the judges, if they gave that to Beterbiev. Certainly the two of them that gave it to Beterbiev would have had to, and potentially even the one that had it as a draw. The other two judges, okay, so we got one judge scored a draw on the other two, 115, 113, 116, 112. We went over that. So that's your CompuBox stats. So shout out to CompuBox for doing what they do. They do such a nice job in all these fights. Dimitri Bivol, taking the loss perfectly, says, I am a warrior. I don't have any explanation, because it could look like excuses. I just congratulate Artur and his team. He deserves it. So there it is. And now, as I see this, the official judges' scorecards are out, but they're incredibly hard to read. Okay, so the guy that had it 114 did give the 10th round to the 12th round to Beterbiev. Okay, so all 3 judges, and I think this is the round that's going to be talked about the most, all 3 judges gave the 12th round to Beterbiev. I gave it to Bivol, and almost everyone else that I saw it to gave it to Bivol. So that's going to be the round that most people are talking about. And so I'm going to have to go back and watch that at some point and see what I got. Otherwise, just some other differences to look at would be the judge who had it a draw gave the 3rd round to Beterbiev, and then gave the 4th round to Bivol. So he switched those, and then he gave Beterbiev the 10th, 11th, and 12th. So those are going to be your big rounds to look at. And as I look at it now, all 3 judges gave the 10th, 11th, and 12th to Artur Beterbiev. Man, I don't know about that. I am not happy about that. That's frustrating to see. I figured that's where they had done it. So we'll have to go watch back and hopefully even film it while I'm doing it, but watch these last 3 rounds because that's really unfortunate. So all 3 judges gave those final 3 rounds to Beterbiev, and all 3 judges also gave the 3rd round to Beterbiev. And the judge who scored at 116-112, he gave the 3rd and 4th round to Beterbiev, and then the last 3 rounds, and gave 8 and 9 to Bivol in there. So that's your judges' scorecards. And certainly the big one is that all 3 judges gave 10, 11, and 12 to Artur Beterbiev. So that's what we're working with. So congratulations to Artur Beterbiev. It was an impressive showing. I was hoping that if he was going to win, we would see a knockdown or a knockout. We did not see that. But he put on a show, and he's older now. And so there's going to be some conversations had about how quick they want to turn this fight around, because you would want it to happen rather quickly. Listen, just stylistically, we kind of talked about this early on, but the jab was big for Bivol. The power punches were big for Beterbiev. And then the biggest thing was just the ability of both fighters, I think, to take momentum swings and bring them back in their direction. You know, you see that in boxing so often where a guy like Bivol wins the first couple and then Beterbiev comes and just ruins it and takes the rest of the fight. For Bivol to come back in the 8th round, for him to go and lose potentially 4, 5, 6. I think every judge had him losing 4, 5. One judge gave Bivol the 4th, but every judge had Beterbiev winning 5, 6, and 7. And then, those were big shots that Bivol took. And that was the difference in the shots, too, was Bivol put a lot of good combos together. When Beterbiev hit Bivol with a jab or a straight right, Bivol's head knocked back. When Bivol did it to Beterbiev, that wasn't the case. So you could see the difference in punching power there. And so, obviously, you have to think about that as well when you're scoring a fight like this. But stylistically, just such a good fight. It's just truly a feel-good fight as a fan. Like, that's everything you can ask for in a boxing fight. If you're not going to get a knockout, if you tell me I won't get a knockout or a knockdown in this fight, this is what you're asking for. This is perfect. Back and forth, big-time shots, and just so calculated. For Beterbiev to throw that many punches and yet be so calculated in everything he does, it is so impressive. So I want to talk this pound-for-pound thing because it's interesting. You know, it'd be hard after a fight like this to say, well, Beterbiev's in that top 4 category now with Inoue, Usyk, and Crawford, because we all know that, it could have been a draw. Bivol was right there. A lot of people had Bivol winning the fight. And so it's impossible to do that. And so Bivol was ahead. Bivol was at 4 on ESPN's pound-for-pound rankings, and Beterbiev was at 6. I can confidently put both of these guys ahead of Canelo. Certainly Bivol because he beat him, and I think he would again. And Beterbiev beat Bivol now. But not just that. Both of the guys tonight looked sharper and more impressive than Canelo has. Canelo's shown a lot of holes in his game. And the only reason we saw minor holes from Bivol or Beterbiev because they were standing across from an absolute legend in the sport. So I would for sure put them 4 and 5 behind those top 3 with Canelo behind them. I wouldn't mess up that top 3 for now. I think that top 3 is still on a pedestal. But I'll say it most of it's because Inoue doesn't have a Bivol in his division. Crawford doesn't have a Beterbiev in his division. So we're not going to see these guys probably lose. And so I won't get into the pound-for-pound debate now just because Bivol and Beterbiev are 4-5, and Usyk, Crawford, or Inoue didn't fight tonight. What I'll say is this: they talked about it on the show before the fight, and it sort of frustrated me because they made a comment about how after Inoue fights again now, he'll probably be number one, and after Crawford fights, he'll be number one. And that's kind of frustrating because I think we should have some closure of, like, who is the best. Not just, like, who's won more recently, but who is the best. And I've even fallen into that trap of switching it after somebody wins because they're so impressive. But to me, I mean, if we're talking pound for pound in a way of if all these guys were the same weight and they fought each other, who would win? It's so hard to do that way because there's different styles because of how guys are. So the way I look at it that's a little easier is who's the least amount of holes in their game right now. And to me, that's Terrence Crawford. And who's going to show up? I mean, I love Usyk. That was a really close fight with Fury, right? And I love Inoue. He just got knocked down. And I know Crawford was just in a really close fight too. I understand that. I don't think that was Crawford's best stuff. And I'm confident that when Usyk has to fight Fury, and when Crawford has to fight Boots Ennis, and when Inoue has to fight Gervonta Davis or a dog, I think the one that's going to show up the most is Crawford. So I have Crawford at number one right now, and I'm going to have closure with that for a while until I feel like really differently about it, because I think it's important to kind of pick a guy and stick with him at this point, when instead of switching these three guys around based on whoever's fought more recently and whoever had the most recent impressive knockout. So Bivol and Beterbiev will stay behind them for now. Would have been nice to have one win convincingly and enter that conversation, because they certainly would have. But we all kind of knew that was not going to happen. So obviously it doesn't happen. The show as a whole, I thought the crowd was good in Saudi. Cool to see Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum sitting by Turkey. The fireworks and stuff was cool. I enjoyed the show. I was impressed by how good the crowd was. And I hope that continues to grow. Like, I just genuinely hope that these people in Saudi understand how lucky they are to have all these amazing fights. And my hope is that's what's going on, is that they're actually understanding, like, these guys are really good. And these fights could be happening anywhere in the world, and they're somehow happening here. And it seems like that might be going on. So I hope that's the case, and I hope that happens with the UFC there as well. What a night. I mean, it's just a feel-good fight. It just makes you feel good when there's so much drama that happens in this sport. By the way, I left out Garcia-Haney in my fight of the year. I'll have to throw Garcia-Haney in there too. But that was the opposite of feel good, with everything that we've seen Ryan Garcia go through, and Haney now with the lawsuit. That's the opposite of feel good. And when you get enough of that, you just want to see a Bivol and a Beterbiev. And that, to me, is the reason. It's almost like an Alex Pereira, Yuri Prochazka situation. Two guys that are just so humble and so quiet, but just go to absolute business. The difference is Pereira dominates that rivalry, and this rivalry is 50-50. If they fought 10 times, I would actually put down a bet that they go 5-5. That's how 50-50 this matchup is. So, I mean, we're blessed to be able to watch this, and I hope we see it once, maybe twice more, because this was so good, and both guys are going to tell you, yeah, I wasn't my best tonight. I think they were. I think they were their best, and they just stood across from an absolute stud, a top 5 boxer in the sport. So technical, and oftentimes, especially in the UFC with strikers versus wrestlers, but even in boxing, in this it was the power guy versus the technical guy. And it just feels like it has to go one way. Like the power guy just doesn't have it that night, can't get the big shot, and loses big. That was not the case. Beterbiev is much more than just a power guy. He's not just here to land that big knockout. He wins rounds, and he is technical, and he has good head movement, and he does a lot of things right. So, yeah, really impressive stuff. As I continue to see what's going on here. A lot of people, someone here says that Bivol didn't fight well the last 3 rounds and that he gave Beterbiev the last 3, so I'll certainly have to watch those last 3. Bivol, complete class in all of this. He says he did his job. He always feels he could be better. Says it's just the opinion of the judges. Andre Ward tweeting that Bivol won the fight. He says 116, 112 is crazy. That's crazy. I'm not going to go crazy about like 115, 113. 116, 112. I mean, I see the vision of how he got there, but that's pretty far apart for a fight like this. Eddie Hearn says, listen, I don't want to disrespect Beterbiev, but you saw the body language. They knew they lost the fight. He says 116, 112 Beterbiev. You gave Bivol 4 rounds. This is a joke. Of course, we won a rematch. He was robbed of the undisputed championship tonight. I cannot believe you could give Bivol 4 rounds. It's absolutely disgusting. I'm absolutely baffled and disgusted at 116, 112. I agree. 116, 112 is bad. Obviously, Eddie Hearn showing a lot more emotion about that than Bivol did, and that's Eddie Hearn's job, obviously. 116, when you look at it that way, 4 rounds for Bivol is bad. 8-4 is not good. That is not good in a fight that was just really clearly 50-50. I had a question about this, and there's the tweet about this. This guy says Eddie Hearn has said on DAZN that Beterbiev's team were informed they won the fight and began celebrating before the result was officially read. And he said, what is going on in boxing? I need to watch that back. And I think people will start to now, and I'm going to go watch it back right after. That was interesting. The announcers, so they panned to their team. And I noticed this right away, and I had questions about it. They panned to their team, and they were celebrating. So someone, this is obvious, because Eddie Hearn's saying it now. Somebody told Beterbiev's team that they had won that fight before the official decision. And you could hear the announcers. They said it. I don't know which one it was, but they said it. I forget exactly what they said, but it was something along the lines of, get the camera off. Like, we can't show this. So they're like, are you kidding me? It was obvious that Beterbiev's team was down and then heard the decision from somebody. I don't know what happened there, but something that will be talked about, not like a massive deal, but yeah, a lot of pros reacting to this fight that has taken place. Ryan Garcia says 8-4. He says that's a robbery, if you ask me. Shakur Stevenson says laughing emojis to the 115, 113, and 116, 112. And Shakur says boxing is so terrible. Clarissa Shields says, this fight didn't live up to the hype. To me, she's very wrong there. Clarissa Shields, you do not live up to the hype. And then she completely butchered the scorecards. I don't even know what she's saying right now. Darren Till says, judges again, great fight. I had Bivol slightly. These scorecards are ridiculous, as always. Steven Espinosa says, really poor scoring. 116, 112 for Beterbiev is egregiously bad. Not acceptable. A lot of people had Bivol winning that. Islam Makhachev is happy. Makhachev thought Beterbiev won. But yeah, that's the reactions. Terrence Crawford says it was a good fight. Josh Taylor thought Bivol won. So a lot of the fighters reacting and saying that Bivol won. But it is official. Artur Beterbiev is your undisputed champ. Seeing that Brandon Royval has arrived, and that fight is going to happen soon. So I'm excited for that. I'll be live tweeting that fight. Excited to talk about that. And yeah, what a fantastic day of fights. UFC 310 was announced. Bilal Muhammad and Shavkat Rakhmonov. And then Kaya Skora and Pantoja and some other fights. Gan and Volkov is on that card. hopefully dropping a video this week reacting to that. But as Michael Benson tweeted, he had 664 replies asking if it was a robbery. Certainly not a robbery, but 116, 112 is not good. So yeah, Steven Espinosa does not like it. But luckily we are going to see the rematch. And so that's the bonus in all of this, even if it is a rivalry. But everyone agreeing that 8-4 is bad. There's no way you could possibly get that. And so here we are. You've got the winner. So an impressive card, impressive showing from the Saudis, impressive showing from both fighters tonight. And once again, a feel-good moment, a feel-good event for two guys that are so classy and work so hard in this sport. And there's so many, frankly, clowns that we see in this sport. And here we are with two guys with great teams, just hard-working Russian guys that have done so much for this sport. And so there's going to be a lot of aftermath. I'll be talking about this for the next couple weeks, likely, because there's going to be so much aftermath that goes on here. And so hopefully next year we get that rematch. I don't know exactly when that would be, but I'm sure the Saudis can make it happen soon. Obviously, this fight was supposed to happen earlier, and it ended up happening now because of a Beterbiev injury. So he came back nicely from the injury. It wasn't too big of a deal, the injury. But that is all we've got for the show tonight. A fun fight. And if we see the fight again, I think it'll be a lot of the same stuff. And I think it'll come down to the judges again. And unfortunately, boxing has a serious judging problem that it seems like nobody wants to actually do anything about, which is unfortunate. But we've seen, in most cases you say, well, it'd have to be egregious, right? It would have to be, as Eddie Hearn says, it would have to be baffling and disgusting or something of that nature for them to make a change. And we've seen baffling, we've seen egregious, we've seen disgusting, we've seen it all in this sport. I think of the Shockey Foster and Conceição fight on the Shakur undercard, and the amount of times that I've heard Joe Tessitore talk about an absolute robbery and an absolute disgusting reffing, judging, whatever. It's embarrassing. It feels corrupt. And I'm not talking about this fight anymore. 8-4 is really bad, but I'm not even talking about this fight. But we've seen some really, really, really egregious stuff, and nothing has changed, and no one's even talked about it. So maybe someone wants to talk to Turkey about that, because Turkey's making a lot of changes, and he could probably change something there too. But we've seen, really bad. In UFC and boxing, we've seen egregious. We've seen it all. And no changes have been made on judging. And so, if we see this fight again, I would guess that we'll be in the same spot in 4 or 5 months talking about judging, because we have an interesting system. AI, hopefully, could take that over soon. I haven't talked about that on the podcast yet, but I would love to at some point. In a sport where AI could help combat sports quite a bit, and that might be the main way, which is obviously there's a lot of problems with the fact that some of it is an eye test thing of how much does that punch affect someone or whatnot. Not just, you can't just look at the body shots and all the data and see who won a fight, right? You have to actually see it. But AI has become advanced enough that I think we can start to talk about it, doing those kind of things. Artur Beterbiev is the undisputed champ at 175. For now, I am Austin. Thank you guys for joining for the post show. What a night of boxing. And we'll see who comes out on top tonight, Royval or Tyra. But everything you could ask for in this fight. It was absolutely fantastic. Good night, guys.